Good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us for the Sacramento State Alumni Association Career Buzz focused on entrepreneurship and business. We will give it just a second for folks to arrive. Oh, numbers are trickling in. Wonderful. All right. Well, you have joined us today for the Career Buzz series. Today, we're focused on entrepreneurship and business. We're very glad that you could take part of your day, your lunch hour to spend with us. My name is Jennifer Barber. I am the Executive Director of your Sacramento State Alumni Association, and I'll be acting as the moderator today. So thank you for joining us. I am honored to be here with a wonderful group of Sacramento State alumni, and I'm thrilled for all of you to hear their diverse experiences and success stories. The purpose of Career Buzz is to connect students and recent graduates with our diverse alumni network through Q&A questions in this online format. The best part is we can share it after this event with others who might be interested as well, because we will be recording it, so you will get the recording shortly, not within the day, but probably a week or two after the event. So we'll hear how these three alumni have made a significant impact within our community. They're volunteering today as part of the larger university goal to keep alumni engaged with each other and students. And with that, let's jump right in and hear a little bit from them. So I'd like to invite each of you to introduce yourself, maybe share your name, your major, your degree, when you completed your academic work at Sacramento State, and what you do professionally. And then most important is a fun fact. So I am going to ask Tanya to kick us off.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name's Tanya Brownrigg. My major is social work, and I graduated from Sac State in 2021 with my bachelor's degree. I am the founder and executive director at Victims Empowerment Support Team, which is a social service agency that assists victims impacted by domestic violence. A fun fact about me is that I love to bake. However, I'm always saying I need to stop snacking and I need to lose weight, but I typically bake about once a week.
I say follow your joy. You know, if baking gives you joy, it just is what it is.
Yes, it does.
All right. Thank you, Tanya. Rochelle.
My name is Rochelle Disney, and my degree was a master's in business administration, graduated from Sac State Intel 11, class of 2017. I am the co-founder of Glitter and Row. We're an event production management and marketing firm. And a fun fact about me is I have two children, ages 5 and 1, and then what I call a very small farm that includes rabbits and chickens.
That's awesome. That must be fun to see a little 1-year-old and 5-year-old and having fun with the rabbits and the chickens. All right.
The farm life, absolutely.
Yeah, and I envision lots of muddy days, but all right, Chris.
Hello, everybody. My name's Chris McAlevey. Attended Sac State from 2003 to 2007. Fun fact was that I actually played soccer there. That's what drove me to Sacramento area originally. And I studied communications with a focus on mass media, and I minored in marketing. And like I said, the fun fact was I played soccer, but I love snowboarding, I love jet skiing, I love all the different kind of activities that region brings us. So it was a nice place for me to call home for a good period of my life.
That's awesome. Thank you. So now that you've met our panelists, we are going to spend about the next 30 to 40 minutes hearing from them firsthand about their career journey, their successes, ways that they're innovative within their profession, and hopefully you can translate that into what can help shape your experiences in college and beyond. We will not be taking questions during the panel discussion, but we will hold about 10 minutes at the end to answer any questions. So along the bottom bar of your Zoom window, you should see a Q&A feature. If you do have questions as we're going, please put them there, and we will get to those at the end and cover as many of them as possible. So to kick it off, let's follow up on the fun aspect and start with an icebreaker that often is really intriguing to hear about. But I would love to hear, what was your first job and what were some of the life lessons that you learned from that job? I see Rochelle nodding along, so I'm going to call on you first, Rochelle.
My first job was in fast food. I worked in the drive-through of a fast food restaurant, and I just told myself, well, it's not an end goal. I wanted to be sure and do the very best that I could, be the best that I could, show up every day and just do the best job that you can in the role that you currently have, right? While you continue to, strive for more. But really taking ownership over that. I called myself the drive-through queen and just made it fun, right? It lasted 3 months and then I moved on to something else. But during that time, that's what I really made the success of that experience, was just showing up every day and doing the best that you can.
And I think that's such good perspective, because often our first job isn't our dream job. So really kind of figuring out what can you do with that to enjoy it and take something away from it. How about you, Chris?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Actually, I worked in the restaurant industry as my first job as well. I worked at a place called Harry's Hofbrau. Family friend, kid that I went to school with from elementary school, his family was involved in the ownership group, and so it was a nice fit. And my parents always, as I mentioned prior, I was playing sports a lot, so when it was time in between high school and summertime, I always had to get a job. So that was kind of my summer job, and that was my first gig. I was probably 16, 17, and then I eventually made my way to Sac State right after that. So don't know if I'm going back in the fast food business or in the food
Not in your
business.
long-term
No,
trajectory.
Hospitality and specifically food is there's a lot going on, but you definitely have your down times, but then there's a lot of those rush times when everybody's there and you feel the pressure. But it was a good environment, lots to learn from that. And like I said, that also helped bring perspective to the list of things that you may or may not want to do in the future, right? So
Absolutely, because sometimes you don't know until you try something. So how about you, Tanya?
All right, sounds like fast food and restaurant is a theme. I too worked in the fast food business at Burger King. It was my first job at 16 years old. It was at the Eastmont Mall in Oakland. It was about 42-minute walk from my home. The life lessons that I learned was hard work, dedication, and absolute patience. And also the value of hard work and financial responsibility. Being able to work, I was able to buy school clothes for myself. So I felt a sense of independence at that time.
I think that pride in what you're doing and what you can do for yourself is critical in any role. So thank you for sharing. Maybe we'll stick with you, Tanya, for our next question, which is also kind of thinking back to your journey. And what we're hoping to do today is provide some insights and advice for students and recent grads. So with that in mind, what was the best advice you were ever given along your journey from fast food to owning your own business?
So I had a supervisor, which was also my mentor. I was about 20 years old, and she told me, you will succeed in any career if you learn to bite your tongue. And at first it seemed difficult because I grew up in a household that we spoke our minds, we advocated for ourselves and each other. But as I've grown, I've learned how transformative it really was. I learned the power of self-awareness, active listening, building trust and respect. And these are all characteristics for a great social worker. So.
Makes perfect sense and good advice. How about you, Rochelle?
For me, it was to always be curious, right? I think from an early age, I always considered myself a type A personality, and I was going to be a leader, and I wanted to take charge and control every situation. And the more that I've grown, and the more education that I've earned, and the more positions that I've filled along the way, I've realized that there's a lot of benefit to just remaining curious and seeking to really understand, right? I know that we always say that, you know, um, uh, I don't want it to be when something's new and it's coming up that we don't want to just interject and make it all about us and what we're going to bring to the table. We really want to understand the way that people do things, the thought process that they went to get to where they are, right? And I think it's true in anything that you do, whether it's professionally, in your education, in your personal life, just always be curious.
And I would guess curiosity played a big role in deciding to open your own business. So I think that probably is a double exclamation point on that one for those who go into their own business. How about you, Chris?
Yeah, mine actually came from a mentor of mine as well. He was a marine biologist by trade, and so he likes to break things down into the simplest of forms. And just the idea of business is just look around and you look at the plants, you look at all the foliage, and if they weren't doing their business, we wouldn't be here doing ours. So kind of just head down mentality, stay forward and focused. Keep on with perseverance. And like I said, we are given a gift to be able to operate in our own capacity, somewhat control our time, although at times we're working days and into nights and into weekends. But yeah, just to keep focused and realize that everything around you is doing their business, and so got to keep to yours.
Yeah, and I can imagine, especially when you have a huge stake in the game, when it's your own business, and that focus and that perseverance could make the difference between success or struggle. So with that in mind, I know you probably have an even more attentive focus when you are hiring folks to bring into your business or onto your team to support whatever might be needed within your areas. Um, what are some of the qualities that you're looking for? It don't have to be skills, because I think probably all of us have seen it's nearly impossible to find that unicorn person that's done every single thing that a position requires. But what are some of those qualities that you are looking for that you may not see in an interview, in a resume, you may have to tease out in an interview. But when you're bringing people into this personal endeavor of yours, Chris, you wanna take that first?
Yeah, I actually I'm an only child, so a lot of my initial hiring was I found experts at their job who were kind of like me, and I've softened up a little bit, but very head down, get to work, handle your business, and we don't nickel and dime. We don't worry about your time. If you're here getting your work done, then you get your own set of flexibility and you start to control your own destiny in terms of what you want to do with your time, right? So I did start though with trying to bring in some families and friends at times. Some things worked out for a few years, some didn't. And that was definitely a mistake. I realized that I can't put family and friends just because emotionally, business and emotions, oftentimes they might not add up. And there's three different types of people in the world, right? There's analysts, there's assertives, and then there's accommodators, right? So really understanding the type of person that you are going to be in close quarters with at times. You need to understand if the pace picks up, they're going to be running right there with you. So now I've really actually taken a lot more time for the hiring process to seek out the right kind of, we're in production and manufacturing. So machine operators are kind of like electricians. It's a 2 to 3 year learning experience, and then you can start to ramp up from there. So a little bit of a different kind of industry, but at the same time, now I have people that are helping me with the hiring rather than just trying to help the people that were around me initially, and trying to do good as well, right? So think you're on mute.
See, and I was the one that did it. I was saying that's great insight on trying to do good with your business, and I think also sharing the struggles that can occur having family and friends. You know, a lot of people think about this family business concept, but sometimes that's not the most productive route to go. Rochelle, how about you?
What I'm looking for in a person, either through the interview process or in their resume, is just pure authenticity, right? I want them to be their true authentic self, feel comfortable being themselves, and then demonstrate the passion that they have for what they're looking to do, right? Passionate people produce better work product, they provide better customer service. It's evident to our clientele. So, being able to be authentic and not coming across as it's just been, you're giving me the same answer that everybody else gives me because they looked it up on ChatGPT, right? Is really what I'm looking for, is someone that has a genuine passion for the industry, for the work that we do and the service that we provide, and can truly be their authentic self.
Well, in any running your own business, I've got to believe is one of those areas where the hours may be unpredictable, may be long at times, and if you have someone who's just showing up to collect a paycheck, it's not going to get the work done at the level you need it to get done, because it's your name, your reputation on the line. So that's great insight. Tanya, how about you?
So in a resume, I look for longevity in a past job or volunteer work. That tells you a lot about the consistency of a person. In an interview, I look for good eye contact, upbeat energy, because social work is a burnout field. So it's important that the person brings energy and also passion for the work.
Yeah, and I really appreciate the eye contact. I mean, that being, I mean, events are probably that way. Certainly working in alumni relations, it's that way. It's a people business, and so
Yes.
often that's your first connection. Like, can I, really connect with this person?
Mhm.
Being in business for yourself and thinking about work styles and what has been successful. I know Chris has hit on, a lot of head down perseverance. You just got to keep going. We've heard about passion. You got to have a passion for what you're doing. But as you're reflecting on all of those things, how do you set goals for yourself? Both, daily goals as well as like long-term goals of where you want your business to be 1 year, 3 year, 5 years from now. Rochelle, you want to take that one first?
Sure. I like to prioritize and then celebrate the success. So I'll start first with prioritizing, right? I create my list or my plan of my short and long-term goals, and I break them out into objectives that are actionable, and creating those tasks that then align with those objectives, so that I know that I'm building myself a plan of action to reach those goals, right? There's nothing worse. And I think I've learned this over time of how to do this really well. You start off with really lofty goals when you're in high school, or maybe even before that. And I'm going to be an astronaut, or I'm going to be a model, or whatever, line of work you think you want to get into, but you don't plan of how to get there. You just say you're going to do it, right? And so as I've grown and continued in my professional journey, it's all about setting those action steps, creating those objectives, and then when you meet those goals, really giving yourself the airtime and the space to say, I did that, and that was a win, and now what do I need to do from here? Is there something that then builds upon that, or is it something you're going to go in a totally different direction? So it's really about prioritizing action steps and then celebrating those successes, I think is just so valuable.
And I would underscore the celebrating is often we're so feeling behind and like we need to move on to the next thing that we don't take the time for that. But that's really kind of what keeps the fire going and what keeps that passion moving
Absolutely.
forward. So thank you for bringing that up. Tanya, how about you?
So goal setting for me is critical, or I would be all over the place. I have to set goals, whether they're small or large goals, in order for me to stay productive and focused. I like to look at the small pictures and the big picture perspective. I have a weekly to-do list. I put things on my to-do list stickies on my desk. I have my calendar that I organize my meetings or important tasks that I have to do, but I also journal for the long-term goals. So when I first started, my long-term goal was opening up a domestic violence shelter. So I'm always able to look at that. I have reminders on my calendar. It just shows up, just to remain focused. So my approach is more of a combination of structure and accountability. And I always prioritize this well, but I also leave in myself the flexibility to pivot when I need to.
That's great. I love that you have calendar reminders. I mean, that's something I think I'll take down to just take that time to refocus on your goals and where do you want to be. And if opening a shelter is that future goal, making sure that you're making the incremental steps to achieve that. That's
Yes.
awesome. Chris, how about you?
Yeah, I just like Tanya said, I do a lot of sticky notes, and I do a lot of process of elimination. I kind of have a little bit of an OCD thing where I like to see things checked off the list. So day to day, just the tasks of the day. I have small lists, and then when I want to go into thinking deeper, I do a lot of mind mapping, and that kind of helps me control the direction that I want to go. And obviously, we all kind of come here and we want to create this ideal of who we ought to be. But really the real journey is finding out, who we already are and becoming that. Right. So, yeah, lofty goals. And for me, I just keep creating. It's something I like to do. I've created a few more entities as well. Do that on Saturdays and Sundays in my downtime when my kids aren't around. So, yeah, I haven't quite absorbed all of my goals that I want to reach. It's more year-end type stuff. And then obviously building goals with my team is very important. So that's kind of a roadmap. And just as Rochelle said, celebrating those victories and those milestones, and taking the time to appreciate what it took to get there, because as a lot of people say, it is about the journey, right? So that's kind of how I stay forward and focused. But I definitely like writing things down, putting things in lists, and figuring out how it all adds up and connecting those dots.
Yeah, and it sounds a little bit like I thrive off crossing it off when something is accomplished. That for me, that's half of the celebration is I am crossing that off. It sounds like, I mean, Chris definitely already has more irons in the fire, things he's working on. Sounds like Tanya has goals down the road. So kind of a follow-up question to that is, what resources did you all tap into when you decided I'm going to do it? I'm going to take the leap. I'm going to create my own business or organization. I know we have on campus the Carlson Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation that's open to students, alumni, community members to learn more about becoming an entrepreneur and all the steps that are involved. But what resources did you guys take advantage of to kind of chart your course when you were first deciding this is it, I'm going to do it? Chris, how about you? You look like you're
Yeah. I
taking a
mean,
big breath.
I take a lot. I take a lot from my past. It started with elementary school and just the people who were around me. Grew up out of the Bay Area, um, dead set in the middle of Silicon Valley. So at the time, the houses kept getting bigger, and you're trying to figure out what that parents do, and how am I going to do this one day? And ultimately, it kind of comes from a level of fear. But ultimately tapping into experience in terms of sport, in terms of coaching styles, in terms of what I've learned there, and then going through high school and stuff, making connections there, those kind of people ultimately gave me the real, monetary value to get the business started and going, and the confidence. But it comes from a slew of people across all the years. It comes from guys like Mike Linnenberger, the soccer coach at Sacramento State. He was a national champion at Duke. You can't get any better than that, right? So it's just a laundry list of great people. And also you make mistakes, and like I said earlier, you take on other gigs, or you try things, and then you realize, okay, maybe I'll shelf that. I don't want to do that again. But I was very confident in my resource base from where I came from. And I would say that was ultimately the launching pad.
Well, it sounds like you had a very rich network of people surrounding you that could provide insight and advice and probably direction on how to get your journey going.
Yeah, and I mean, you really just want to, how can I be valuable, right? You want to create value, and you
Yeah.
also don't want to step on toes. So finding an industry or finding that passion project, and no business is easy to start. So it's hard enough just to kind of figure out what you want to do day one anyways, right? So
Yeah. How about you, Tanya? What resources did you utilize in getting your organization up and running?
I tapped into community resources. I started my organization during my Sacramento State internship. So I
wow.
was able to really pick the current director's brain on what they were doing, how they were doing it. Really started reaching out to different partners in the community. I did a lot of research and reading. I also have lived experience of being a survivor. So when I started this, I started with a needs assessment in the community. So I did a lot of phone calling or showing up at other businesses to see the programs that they currently have. So when I started this, I started with a support group, which at that time, no one in Solano County had one. I also started with a prevention education workshop, which no one had that, or case management. I'm so really tapping in on community resources, talking to the community, the district attorney's office, and survivors to see what the community needed, because I didn't want to replicate current programs. I wanted to provide the community members with resources that they did not currently have.
So you found the need within your area of passion and kind of
Yes.
built your organization to fit that need. That's a great pathway to success, it sounds like.
Thank you.
Rochelle, how about you?
So it's me and my business partner, and we had been working together for years, right? We've worked together in corporate America for 17 years together, and so we heard ourselves and our husbands say to us several times, "Why are you not doing this for yourselves?" Right? Because we were doing corporate event planning and production and conferences and conventions and traveling everywhere, and found it so much fun, right? And we have very complementary strengths. So that made it really easy for us to transition just into, why don't we just do it for ourselves, right? And I'll handle this part of the business, and you can handle that part of the business, and we can continue with the same model, and then just building upon the relationships that we've already made along the way. So it was a really easy transition. What's transpired since then has presented some challenges, right, with COVID and different things along the way. But jumping into the entrepreneurship of it and opening our own firm was definitely an easy decision to make.
Fantastic. So Tanya kind of hit on it a little bit. Being successful, making progress in your field relies on being innovative, having unique ideas, innovative ideas, ways that you can do things that either no one else is doing or you can do them differently or better. How do you incorporate that need for innovative ideas or business practices into keeping your organizations and companies successful and moving forward and reaching towards that next set of goals? Rochelle, you're nodding really happily, so I'm going to call on you again.
Excellent. Yeah, so for us, what we've had to realize over the years is that change is inevitable, right? We say that and it's kind of flippant and it's cliche and but it's so true. Change is inevitable. And especially in our industry with events is, the world shut down and it impacted our business tremendously because corporate events weren't happening. And so we made a conscious decision at that time to go into to pivot, if you will, and go into private events because there were still people out there who wanted to continue to celebrate life and milestones in life and had a need that needed to be met. And so one of the things that we really focus on at our firm is that we create experiences regardless of the size of the event that you're trying to put on, the purpose of the event. We want to really create a meaningful experience, not only for you, but for your guests and your audience, et cetera. So we've seen a lot of challenge and a lot of changes, but we remain very flexible, and we want to embrace that change and see how it can take us in directions that we didn't think we were going to go into in the first place. But we embrace it and we move forward with the same logic of understanding clients' needs and how we can work to fulfill and create those meaningful experiences.
Well, and we all had the pivot forced on us with COVID, but it's great to hear that, you didn't just shut down like, oh, we can't do events. You really kind of turned it around and looked at how can we make this beneficial for us, for our clients, and continue to deliver the experiences that people want. So that's fantastic. Tanya, how about you?
So I actually started Vest during the pandemic. So when I created the programs, I created the programs to be either over the phone or online because the Family Justice Center was shut down at that time. And no one really understood how to pivot. So it was, you cannot come in. Most of the clients were walk-in clients. So making sure all the programs are available to everyone and there are no barriers to services, and continue to look at those programs and see if there's other programs that need to be added to the menu as well.
Yeah, there definitely were industries that were not ready to pivot online. So it's great that you were able to really think of how to remove those barriers for your clients. Chris, not to make this about COVID, but how have you been innovative in your line of work?
Yeah, I mean, like Rochelle said, like adaptability, you always think, is it the strong that survive or is it the cockroach? So there's many ways to think about these things. But as I mentioned before, I'm in the manufacturing business. And so obviously in terms of just the day-to-day innovations and kind of inks and stuff like that, that's the basic form. But we continue to run, and we saw things because of COVID, like sport. So we went ahead and did the trademarking for Major League merchandise. And so we're working on a licensing play now for another business of ours that goes hand in hand with our merch business, just sports based, right? So there's, like I said, when you have time to sit and think a little bit, and it's just our ability nowadays to look at Olympic athletes who take time away from sport and need to take their time to themselves, and mental well-being and mental health. I think that's at the forefront. So, but innovation is constant, and it's happening so fast every day, just with all this AI and SEO and all these things you have to keep up with. It's gotten a lot harder to kind of be a one-man band. So I think, working with people and really listening to them and hearing them out, I think that's part of what helps shape our course too, and what helps. Obviously the market demands and are there, but staying on task, but also being pushed by clients and being pushed by people to do things out of your norm that have made you uncomfortable, that do take more time and energy. But once you get them down, then they can be, a good profit center and have good ROI. So We've done little things like added fulfillment and drop shipping, something that mostly big warehouses do, or certain companies only focus on that. And that's one part of our business, is we have corporate clients who we do fulfillment and we manage their back end. And so that's been one thing too, that's been a big advantage for companies like Ingenium. They'll come to us specifically because they have a ton of workers that work remote. And when they need stuff shipped, they know that we're their only supplier that will get that done for them. So it has been a competitive advantage, but you also have to deal with customer service and other stuff with fulfillment. So like I said, everything has its up and its down.
Customer service. Pretty necessary and so important, but takes a lot of time. And I really appreciated your takeaways about you have to make space to give yourself the time to be innovative. You're not just going to magically have the time and the space to think about those things. You have to make that happen. So I appreciated your insight on that. As we get towards the second half of this time and heading towards looking at the Q&A, let's kind of reflect the other way and think about what advice would you give to a student or a recent graduate who's thinking they might want to open their own business. They have an idea or they have a passion and they want to pursue it and be their own boss. What advice would you give them? Tanya, I'm going to call on you first.
Right. So I would say start a business that you are genuinely passionate about. People will feel your passion, and through your passion, they will want to support you. Because if they feel like you believe in it, they're going to want it, right? But also know your product, use your product. Don't just sell it. Be the expert of your business. Also, I would say chase the mission and not the money, because if you're passionate about it, you chase the mission and you're focusing on the mission, the money will follow.
Good advice. Good advice. Rochelle, how about you?
I love that she did a little three-legged stool approach. So I'm going to do the exact same thing. The first thing I would say is I'm going to echo what Tanya said. Find your passion, do what you love, right? Because you will exude that passion and people will genuinely want to follow you, utilize your services, buy your products, etc. Be prepared to work hard. Work hard, right? You have never worked so hard in your life as you do when you work for yourself. But if it's something that you love, then hopefully you'll feel like you're not working at all. And then through your affiliations with Sac State and other organizations that you're a part of, and remain connected, build relationships with people. That's where the crux of being successful as a small business owner is going to come from, is really building those relationships, remaining connected, going out and networking with the various organizations like an alumni association or something like that. That that will only continue to provide you the opportunities to continue to be successful.
And, I will add to that. You never know who you're going to talk to in line at the grocery store, who you're going to sit next to on an airplane, or, bump into at the rental car stand. Yeah. I have had some amazing connections just in those most unlikely places where that's not the hat you have on, but these connections happen and they could catapult what you're trying to accomplish. So always have that in the back of your mind, that you've got to be ready to talk about your thing and share it and sell it and show your passion. Thank you. Chris, how about you?
Yeah, just to echo off of what they both said, finding your authentic self, following that path, right? We're not really born into this world waiting for the world to stamp its print on us, right? We need to go out and utilizing the networks, realizing that it doesn't help anybody to burn bridges, right? And sometimes, as I think Tanya said earlier, mum's the word, keep the mouth shut sometimes. So as an only child, I looked at the world from a perspective that I knew I would need people, and people also bring joy to our lives. So for me, and as I said earlier, you're not born with unlimited choice, but you need to go find your destiny and what your calling is. And that's echoing on the passionate nature that you need to have when you do this, because yeah, it's not for the money, and you'll understand that out of the gate unless you are really special and talented.
We all like to think we're really special and talented, but yes, there is a foundational need for resources to get all of these things off the ground. Those are all the truly like career focused questions, but I do want to wrap up before we go to our Q&A with just a quick fun question for each of you. Like, and now some of you have hinted towards this already. What is a future goal that you are still pushing, like that's what I want to get to? It could be personal or professional, but would love to hear what's that thing that it's still out there on the horizon and you're running towards it. Chris, you want to take that?
Well, I've already made some investments into some pro sports teams, so that's kind of a passion play that I see myself specifically with soccer. I'd like to be more involved on the ownership side, and I'm hoping that the trajectory I'm on can take me there one day.
That'd be awesome. Well, alumni events in the future when you've got that team nailed down. Let's do it.
That's right.
Rochelle.
I have a few, right? I feel like I always set multiple things for myself. It's been, I think, a lifelong dream for me. But I want to continue speaking. I've always dreamt about having a podcast, so look for that someday soon. I got about 150 episodes of content that I already want to talk about. And then eventually become a teacher, right? Education is a true passion of mine, and I've done some speaking recently in some university classrooms, and I get so recharged just being around education and learning and the next wave of our youth that's seeking their education and going on to build bigger careers, and so I think that I would really like to become a teacher or professor someday, I think, and be able to give back and continue to educate and share my knowledge that I've gleaned, but also continue learning, right? Because the information changes, and we need to be able to continue to grow ourselves.
Oh, Professor Disney, I can see it. It's happening.
Yes.
Tanya, how about you?
For me, when I started VES, I have it in my journal still. I said I wanted to start a shelter by my 5th year. Now we're into our 3rd year. We turn away so many clients in Sonoma and Solano counties because there's no shelters. And it's hard enough for a victim to flee their situation, to learn there's no shelter and they have to potentially go back. So I'm really passionate about this shelter. So definitely that. I have a vision of having like the farm style with animals, pet therapy, and all that good stuff. So that's the vision that I have in my mind when I close my eyes and think about the shelter.
Well, I love that not only for you, but I love that for all the people who need it. So
Yes, thank you.
All right, well, let's go to questions from our Q&A. Thank you all for the insight you've already provided, and we'll jump into that. So our first question, how important is it to have a mentor, and how do you find a mentor? Anyone want to volunteer to jump in on that first? Tanya, you got it.
I think it's extremely important to have a mentor. I've been blessed enough to have had mentors since I was 20 years old, mentors that I still keep in contact with. So I've committed to my team and my interns and volunteers to act as a mentor as well. We cannot do it all ourselves. We have to align ourselves with people that are more experienced, more educated, in order to be our best selves. And I also do some mentee for UNR as well. So I'm also committed to doing that at work, outside of work, my daughter's friends, my son's friends. I'm always doing it somehow and providing some type of life experience or lessons.
That's awesome. Well, I'm going to ask if Chris or Rochelle have anything to say, but I'm also going to ask our tech person in the background to maybe put a link to our career network, which is a great place to find alumni mentors, and also to the Carlson Center in the chat, so that you all, those are two great campus resources that anyone can use, whether you're a current student, alum, can use to help find mentors, network, whatnot. Chris, Rochelle, do either of you want to weigh in on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's vitally important. Coach, mentor, sensei, however you want to approach it. It's just your way of thought. And for me specifically, I have one mentor that comes to mind because he's active and he's with me day to day in and day out, and he knows my ups, my downs, and my all arounds. And he's kind of like a psychologist to me. There's just certain people I can't talk to about the kind of issues that come up or things that happen in the day. So it's really nice to know you have somebody behind you that thoroughly understands what you're going through, and is on your team most of all, right? And so it's been really important for me, and I think that's something, as Rochelle said, that we want to echo that later in life and be able to give back to people. And I think this is kind of a first step in that direction for me as well. Starting to put myself out there more often. I'm not a big self promoter. I'm kind of a back office guy. But yeah, it's super important, everybody. I would highly recommend it. And it's going to take putting yourself out there. You're not going to, you might not find a mentor through your cousin's best buddy's dad, or maybe you might, right? So, but it's also staying on task and people seeing what you're doing and being in tune with people. So that's the tricky part about networking and being in business, is you never know if that next mixer might be that person that changes your life.
Any more comments on mentors before I go on to the next question? All right. We have someone who has a dream of opening a storefront to provide herbs and supplements specifically for children, women who are mothers. They're a pharmacist. They have their MBA, so mixing the background knowledge and the business knowledge, but financially they are discouraged. How to find the financing to get their dream more into reality. Are there any tips any of you have for how to navigate financing your dream?
I would say it's the way of the world. It has been tricky the last few years. Money's not flying around the way it used to. I would say that debt sometimes can be a good thing. That's going to help you get to your financial goals in the long run. And I think there's a connotation in it, just this whole idea that debt's always negative. So I think it is about finding that balance of what you're comfortable with, because you're going to take on debt immediately. If you have to buy equipment, if you need an office space, if you need an employee, you're going to have to find some way to finance that day in and day out, until the company can strategically run well on its own, and is giving the return on investment that it should be giving. I've been in this line of business for about 10 years, and there was about 4 or 5 years in a row where I bought an $80,000-$90,000 machine every year consecutively, because I kept working towards the next bigger path, the next bigger opportunity. And so, yeah, it's tricky right now. But you got to believe in yourself, and you got to believe in what you're doing. You have the GNCs of the world that are out there. There's big supplement stores that you're competing with. So finding that niche, finding, if you're all natural, I know, that's your selling point, right? So if you can continue to appeal to your demographic and putting yourself in the right location as well, it's not always about settling on the cheapest place to go rent, because it might be off the beaten path and maybe that foot traffic just isn't there. you know, so that all goes into your strategic plan and how you align with what you want to do.
Great insight. Rochelle, Tanya, anything you want to add to on that one?
I'll add, I would say, because there's a large gap, to see if there's any donors out there that are also passionate about herbs and supplements, but also align with a business partner potentially that can take on some of that financial responsibility, and see if there's any grants out there. Yeah, you can Google grants for specifically for herbs and supplements, and they'll show up if there's anything out there.
Yeah, that's good advice. And, you know, aligning with other organizations that have complementary missions and goals that could cross promote.
Yes.
Because what you're trying to accomplish is a complementary rather than competitive. Could be another foundational option. Rochelle, anything?
The only thing that I would add is, you know, I had a professor a long, long time ago when I was at junior college to tell me to learn with someone else's money first before you go out and start your own thing, right? And so he actually worked at Nordstrom's of all things, and then went on to sell his own clothing brand. But yeah, I think that that's so important. And part of, I think, what made it easier for us to stand up our own business was that we had been doing something and seen how it could be successful. So I think Tanya said it great, and Chris had great insight as well, where you're find your niche, identify what's going to be successful, find a business partner, someone who can help with finances maybe, and then just continue to grow from there.
Yeah, and the grant thing, that was a great point, because you know, it's here, they're here to help, you know, and you just have to look in the right place. So great point, Tanya.
Yeah. And our next question, someone is curious, in the initial phases of your business, what are some strategies you all use to attract clients or customers? And Chris, you got a shout out. They're keeping your name on file for when they're ready to buy merch for their company. But want to know about your experience in initially attracting your clients and your customer base.
Well, I mean, you know, it starts with a business card and being able to substantiate what you're doing and showing somebody that you're serious about doing this. You know, and then you think about having a well-balanced marketing campaign, which comes with the extensions of that, flyers, a website potential, right? So putting yourself in places you can also be found, continuing to network with the association and the different chapters. I think that's the biggest thing is, you know, but a business card goes a long way. I will tell you that.
Yeah, some sort of leave behind. They've got to be able to reach you.
I'll add that I think the most important step is to really identify your client and your persona, right? Who is it that you're going to go after? Understanding more about them and their needs and how they receive information. And then even if you take it a step further into how do they make decisions, right? Will help you guide them along the way towards choosing you and your brand and your service and products. So really understanding the client, how to reach out to them, right? If your clients are over the age of 80, you're not going to use social media. It's not going to be very successful. And if they're under the age of 20, then you definitely want to be on Snapchat or TikTok, right? So there's just a wide array of ways that we can reach out to our clientele. So you really have to understand how they receive information and then make those buyers' decisions.
Yeah. And this particular individual is starting a bookkeeping business. So, you know, I would suggest, you know, find an industry that needs kind of a smaller firm doing that kind of work, like nonprofits. A lot of nonprofits need help in that area. So, you know, find that group that's going to be the most receptive to your smaller boutique offering, and saving them from having to go to a giant accounting firm or something.
I mean, every business needs a bookkeeper, so you're in a good line of work.
Yeah.
Yes.
Our next person asked about is starting a side hustle a good way to become an entrepreneur and find your passion? Anyone?
I think side hustles, I know for me, you know, I mean, you're always wanting to do better. So yeah, if you have a day in and day out job, 9 to 5 kind of thing, and you have a little bit of extra capital and you're looking at doing something, you know, just realize sometimes you're not going to get paid back that same day. Just realize, you know, not only the good you see in it, but what could come of it. But at the end of the day, it's really starting with, you know, why am I doing this? Why do I want to do this? Is my day job leading me to want to do something different? Is it my ego that's leading me to want to do something different? Or is it just my talent? And I firmly understand that this could be a good line of work. So, but yeah, I always say if you got it and you've got the ability and the energy, give it a try. It's only going to teach you and give you better experience moving forward.
Mhm.
Our next attendee asked about SBA, and I'm 90% sure that's Small Business Association,
Mhm.
that they use the SBA to guide them in their startup. And is that, did you use them? Was that a good resource? Are there others you would recommend?
I did not use them because they do not support nonprofits.
Mm,
Yeah.
good point.
I have stepped foot in an office or two. I've been in a workshop or two. So yeah, there's good information. You're going to find other like-minded business people who want to move their businesses forward. So it's also an opportunity to connect with other people. I obviously with COVID, the EIDL and the different loans they've had. So I think we've engaged definitely with the SBA at times. And yeah, it's all about how you, you know, the kind of person you find there, how comfortable you're there. You know, again, just give it a try. Can't hurt, because it's worked for a lot of companies.
I am going to throw a question towards you, Rochelle, because I feel like it kind of ties in with how you were saying you started your business. We have an attendee that's interested in starting a freelance business, doing educational workshops, specifically in the area of sexual education, for the community and businesses, and looking for advice on best first steps in looking to offer freelance workshops.
Mhm. First step, I think, would be addressing the need, right? Finding an audience, a target audience that you want, and making sure that that's something that the audience is going to need. That identifying who that clientele is, and then marketing directly to those individuals, finding people who are, I don't know if it would be something that they would require accreditation in some form to be able to offer those courses, but making sure that you have the right people that are in those teaching roles, sharing that information, and then and giving the same information to all of the individuals, I think is very important. Otherwise, your message starts to get a little diluted. So making sure that you're identifying the clientele, reaching out in the community, maybe even surveying those individuals that you already know, or other individuals that you know out in your network, and then finding the right people to put in the positions of teaching those courses, I think is going to be imperative to the success of that business. Absolutely.
And I think, Tanya, you had some great examples of how you did that. Similar work trying to find where those opportunities were to offer education around domestic violence. Any navigating that advice you would offer?
Yes, I would definitely say get into the community and align yourself with potential partners, or just find out what they're doing and what their needs are. I think a needs assessment when starting any business is critical. You have to make sure the community needs it. You don't want to invest your time and your money if there's no need for it. And having a plan, an action plan on who you're going to address, like Rochelle mentioned earlier, and just have a list. So when I started, I had a list of every agency that I wanted to show up at, every potential partner, and what their needs were. Speaking to the directors or CEOs and finding out what their needs were. Yeah, so I think that's extremely critical, having a plan.
I love it. Having a plan is important no matter what
Mhm.
your business. And I think there's one last comment kind of question in there. I know we're right at 1 o'clock. So,
Mhm.
but someone who was really focused on changing future goals because of
Right.
travel and early career development. And I think
Mhm.
you all have underscored the importance of planning and kind of visioning and kind of mapping what that looks like. And so I'm hoping all of that advice is helpful to this attendee as well, because I do want to be sensitive to wrapping up on time because we promised
Mhm.
folks 12 to 1 and promised you 12 to 1. So I want to say thank you so much for all of the great insight, sharing your personal experiences, your advice. It's been fun to be in conversation with you. To all of our attendees, I really appreciate the depth of questions that you asked. And again, thank you so much for being here for Career Buzz. Our next one will be at the end of January. So uh, keep an eye out on your email for that. And we encourage you to continue to stay connected with your alumni association. So thank you all so much.
Thank
Stingers up
you.
and have a
Stingers up.
wonderful day.
There, everybody.
Bye.
Thank
Bye.
you.